Alright, you can see my screen, right? Okay, so let me go with the concept now. So today's concept is servlets. Okay. So let me increase the font size. Okay. The concept we are going to discuss is servlets. The main purpose of servlets is to develop web applications. So almost 50% of the companies 50% of the companies will develop web applications. For example, you take Facebook. What kind of application is this? Yes. Facebook is a social networking site. It's a social networking site. So how do you access this Facebook? We can access Facebook through internet, right? So here Facebook is nothing but it's a web application. Your Twitter, MySpace, your redbus.in and many more. So almost all the services which are provided by government, even those services are also provided using internet. That means those are also web applications. But to develop these web applications, Java provides us one technology. It's a web technology called as servlets. If we are using for developing the web applications, we can call this as web technology. Okay, and what are other web technologies? The other web technologies are HTML, JavaScript, CSS, HTML5 and so on. Even we can call these kind of languages or also as technologies, web technologies, because we are working with to develop a web application. So partially we can call these things as web technologies. Alright. Now how do we develop these applications? So before that you have to know a simple thing. This is very important to understand about web application. So let me go through it. Okay, let's say we have a college here. So this college has a website, or let's take a university site. Let's take JNTU site. So JNTU has conducted some exams. So after that they have released their results in website. Let's say this is JNTU site. Okay. Now what we do is basically, as a user, here is my user, or let me call it as a student. Here is a student. So what he does is he'll interact with this particular site to get the result, right? So here how the interaction goes? The interaction goes with the help of internet. With the help of internet, the interaction goes, right? Now will he directly connect to the site? I mean to say, will the application, what is the application provided by JNTU, is that application directly accessible by a student? No, because the reason here is, whatever the application you have developed, that application cannot serve the user directly. It has to be served to the user with respect to server. That means your application needs to be in server. Okay, so I'll put my application, this application in the server now. So here is my server. Yeah, in this server your application will be deployed. So we call it as deployment. So if you put your application in server, we call it as deployment. Yes, so whenever your application is deployed in the server, now the server will provide that resource, your application is called as resource, this application to the user. Okay, that is the reason sometimes we say, see, whenever the results comes out, what we do is we try to log in, right? I mean, we try to give our hall ticket number and we'll try to check our result. But there what we face is we say that the server is busy, right? Yes, we say server is busy. We never say the site is busy. We say server is busy because server provides you that resource. So server, what it does is it will take these kind of applications called as websites, these websites into the server. I mean, we put these sites into the server and we'll ask the server to help us to serve our applications to the users. So server plays a major role in providing the service to the users. Okay, now what you have to understand here is, if you want to develop an application, if you want to make it run, in that case you have to take the help of server. Okay, now what actually these servlets are? The servlets are basically, what we can say is a servlet is a technology which is provided by Sun Microsystems to develop web applications. In order to develop web applications, actually your JSE, called as Java Standard Edition, it is only used to develop, I mean your core Java, it is only used to develop desktop applications. You cannot use it completely to develop your web applications. Okay, so in order to support the web applications, they have provided servlets for us. So using servlets, you can develop a dynamic web application, and a web application is divided into two types. A web app is divided into two types. One is static web application and dynamic web application. Static and dynamic web application. So what actually this static web application is? The static web application, it serves all the users with static data. Okay, I'll give an example for this. The example is, you take Gmail homepage, just only the homepage, right? That is a static page. How we can call it a static page? Because for every user, that is the page given by the server. For Facebook, for every web application, so that is a static. So in that way, if you have 4 to 5 pages which can be given to each and every user, but further the example is, you can take online tutorials. So all the online tutorials are static web applications, because for all the users it will be same. Okay, now what is this dynamic web application? So dynamic web application, what actually it does is, based on the given request, it serves the user. For example, here requesting means typing URL and clicking enter, that's it. That is called as request. Yes, you say http://www.facebook.com, it's a request. When you click enter, it's a request. And let's say you have logged in, that is one request, right? It is making you to log in, that is a response. Okay, and you are looking for messages folder, let us say you are looking for messages folder in Facebook, again that is a request. So when you click that messages folder, it is giving messages, that is a response. Okay, so based on the given request, it provides a response, a dynamic response. If you click messages, it gives messages. If you click notifications, it gives notifications. So this is how it goes. So all your internet applications now, I mean your social networking sites, your college sites, all these are dynamic web applications. Okay, so now we concentrate on dynamic web applications. So if you want to develop dynamic web applications, in that case you have to go with a technology called servlets. Okay, we know that Oracle acquired Sun Microsystems, but still Sun Microsystems provided servlets. Servlets was a technology given by Sun Microsystems, not by Oracle. Just Oracle acquired it. That's it. Okay, fine. Now by this you should know one thing, that if you want to develop an application using Java, you should have knowledge on servlets. Along with this, you should have knowledge on HTML, because you for any web application we need a front end. That means graphical user interface. Whatever the data you have, that should be displayed on the browser. To display it on the browser, we have to go with HTML. So if you write HTML code and if you run it on the browser, then whatever the code you have written, based on that code will be turned into graphical user interface. Let's say if I say button, okay, if I say button, so button will be created on the browser. That means I'll say input type equals to button. A button will be created like this. So based on the given tags, the tags you use, based on that, graphical user interface will be generated on the browser. Okay, and if your application needs to be stored some data, in that case what you'll do is you'll use database. So at any cost, in all real-time applications will have databases. So you can use any type of database. Based on your requirement. Oracle, MySQL. You can use any type of database. And after using this, you can develop an application. Now the main task is how to run it. So to run that application, what you have to do is you have to take the help of server. Okay, server plays a major role. Okay, you have to take the help of server. Is this clear? Okay, the next important thing is, what are the servers? So basically, according to Java, according to Sun Microsystems, we have two types of servers. One is web server, the other one is application server. Okay, web server and application server. A server is simple. A server is nothing but it's a resource provider. Any server contains a container. You take any web application. Every web application will be run under server itself. Okay, so it's a resource provider basically, and we can call it as container. I'll tell you why we can call it as container later. Fine. Okay, web server. So the web server contains two containers. One is servlet container, the other one is JSP container. Now what is the responsibility of servlet container? The servlet container, what actually it does is, whatever the applications you develop using servlets, if you want to run those applications, that environment is provided by servlet container. What I'm trying to say here is, I want to compare this with desktop application. It is not JRE, in this case. What I'm trying to say here is, what actually this servlet container does. It will take care of the applications which you develop using servlets. Okay, what actually JVM does? It takes your bytecode, it will execute it. Right? In the similar fashion, your servlet container, what it does is, it will take care of your servlet applications. The same with JSP container. What actually it does? If you develop any application using JSP, so that application will be taken care by JSP container. Okay, and later on we got some more technologies like EJB, and we have some services like transaction management, security, JMS. We have some services. So those services are not supported by this web server, because web server contains only two containers. One is servlet container and JSP container. Okay, so if you want to use some transaction services, or if you want to develop an application using EJB, then in that case you cannot go with web server. In that case, you have to go with application server. Now, what actually is available in this application server? Same. The application server contains a web server components. That means, what are the web server components? What are the web server components? The web server components are servlet container and JSP container. So these are the two components a web server has, and along with this components in application server will have EJB container. Will have EJB container. Along with this, it can support for providing services. So we call them as middleware services for transaction management kind of thing. Yeah. So what are the examples for web server? The best example for a web server, the popular example for a web server is Apache Tomcat. Apache Tomcat. It is pretty simple. It is Apache Tomcat. So the latest version is 8.0. So you can use any version to run your application. One more example for this application server. The example for application server is Glassfish, JBoss, and you have IBM's WebSphere. It goes in this way. IBM's WebSphere like this. Okay. Is this clear? All right. I hope so. Fine. The next thing we'll go with is, okay, 1 moment. Fine. Now we have known something about servers, right? Okay. Now how we develop these applications? How we develop these web applications? So if you want to develop any application, you need an API. That means developing an application means writing classes. Writing classes means we need an API documentation. So Servlets provides an API. Servlets provides an API. So using this API, that means API means we'll have packages. So Servlet provides two packages. One is javax.servlet.start. I mean to say only javax.servlet. Basically, when we import it, we'll say start. Okay. javax.servlet.http. So it provides these two important packages. So these packages contain some classes and interfaces. Using these classes and interfaces, we will be developing our classes. So those classes will be executed by server. So we don't execute them. Okay, that's the reason we are depending on server. Okay, we'll be knowing that later when we develop a simple application. Okay, is this clear? All right. Okay, now what are the classes and in how many ways we can develop this servlet application? I mean a web application using servlets. So you can develop a web application using servlets in 3 ways. The first way is, see here, writing servlets means writing classes. You take any technology in Java, every technology will provide some classes. So you can use those classes in your class. That means you have to write your own classes. So using the classes, you have to provide the functionality. That functionality will be executed by whatever the respective things we have. That means by JVM or by servlet container or JSP container, whatever the further things we have. Okay. Now, in how many ways we can develop the servlets? In 3 ways. Okay. So I'll just write something over here. Developing servlets in 3 ways. We can develop the servlets in 3 ways. The first and foremost way is by implementing an interface called servlet interface. By implementing an interface called servlet interface. Yes. Okay. So let me take a new page here. I don't know to save this. Okay. Fine. I'll take something here. Okay. So here I'll take the servlet interface. So this servlet is an interface from javax.servlet package. So So what is the importance of this servlet? Why we have to go with servlet? So the importance of servlet is it provides us lifecycle management methods. It provides us lifecycle management methods. So what are the methods in that? And we'll see with an example. So the methods here are init method, service method, and destroy method. So these are the lifecycle methods of servlet interface, and along with this it provides us two more methods. One is get servlet info method, that means the information about the servlet will be knowing, and get servlet config method. So we'll be knowing about the next two methods in the later classes, but as of now we have to deal with these three classes, these three methods. One is init method, service method, and destroy method. So to understand this, you have to know the life cycle of a servlet. Okay, you have to know the life cycle of a servlet. So alright, I'll extend it. Okay, so I'll take one more. Fine. You take any application, that application will be initialized. It will be initialized. Any application you take, that will be initialized. Okay, then it will be ready for providing the service. Okay, and finally after serving all the users and there are no requests now, in that case it can destroy means it won't be able to, that means it won't provide the service again. Okay, I'm going to just shut down. Yes. For example, you take you're applying for some exam, some X exam. Okay, so we have a site for that, and that site will be available between 10 to 12 in the morning. Okay, so in that case, when the time becomes 10, in that case what happens here is your application will be started. That means your application will be initialized. From 10 to 12, service, that means it provides the service. After that, once the time comes to 12, so it won't provide the service. In that case it goes to a stage called destroy stage. Yes, that's it. Yes, that is true. Yes, that is true. Okay, so to provide actually then who takes care of these things? So these things will be taken care by your server. These things will be taken care by your server. Your server is responsible for taking the responsibility of these three things. Okay, so now how do you initialize your servlet? Your application. We initialize our application using init method. So how do you provide the service? That means you are providing the service, means let us say giving information about trains. Okay, that means that trains information, let us say it is stored in the database. So if you want to retrieve the data from database, you have to create a connection. That means you have to write some code. So that kind of code you will be writing in service method. So that service will be provided using service method of servlet interface. Next, destroy method. Let us say you don't want to give the service now. You want to shut down your service. Okay, so in that case you'll write destroy method. So that means whatever the initialization you have done, let us say in real time what we do is the initialization. Let us say you have 1000 users for your application, let us assume. So in that case, how many connection objects you require? That means every time you have to connect to the database. Basically we require 1000 connection objects, right? But what I can do is, once I open the connection, for the first user I'll open the connection, and for the last user, that means for the next user, for the next consecutive users, I'll provide the same connection object. Okay, and at the last, that means for 1000th user, what I'll do is I'll destroy that connection object. Okay, that means I am reusing the same object now. So this improves my application performance, right? So fine. Now how do you where do you create the object? So we'll create the object in init method, initialization stage. Then where do you destroy the object? In destroy method. So when it will be called your destroy method will be called whenever your application is undeployed from the server. Okay, undeployed means it is removed from the server, or your server got shut down. Okay, in that cases, whatever the code present in destroy method, that will be called. Okay, to support these three kinds of lifecycle management things, we have these three methods. So using these three methods, we will develop the application. Pretty simple. Okay, now very important thing. What about init method? How, when it is called? What about service method? What about destroy method? Okay, your init method will be called only once. Once you start your application, only for the first request, your init method will be called. Okay, let's say we are the two users. Okay, yeah. So I have requested for the particular application. So I am the first user. In that case, what happens here is first init method will be called. Okay, then service method will be called. That's it. So whatever service I required, that service will be provided by the server by calling the service method. You have no need to call your service method. You are nowhere responsible for calling the service method. Your server will take care of it. Okay. Okay. Now you are the second user. So when you give your URL, when you request for that particular resource, it won't call this init method. Init method will be called only once. Then directly service method will be called. Now I am the third user, service method. Fourth user, service method. For all the users, service method will be called. Initialization will be done only once. Okay, it's like very simple. See, if you want to drive a car, how many times you start your car? Only once, right? Not every second, right? In the similar fashion, when it comes to init method, it will be called only once to initialize things, to initialize some code which is required to provide the resource. Okay, is this clear? Yeah. Okay. Now let us see how to install the server. It's pretty simple. So I'll go with Tomcat server now. Then later on we'll see application server in the later examples. Yeah. Okay. So this is my server, Apache Tomcat. Just I'll copy this and I'll paste on my desktop. Okay. So when you download Apache Tomcat from internet, you will get this kind of zip file. Basically you will be getting a zip file. I've extracted it. Okay, for your convenience I'll delete this. So I'll start from the beginning. So I'll just where is my file? Yeah, here it is. Let me copy this. Yeah, I'll paste here. Okay, let me extract this. So after you extract, you'll get a folder here. So with different like bin folder, configuration folder, lib folder, logs folder. So we'll have different folders. So in this, the important folder is bin folder. Okay. So the bin folder contains startup and shutdown of your server. You just click on it, your server will be started. Okay. So if you want to start the server, you have to make your JDK available to it. You have to make your JDK available to it. To do so, what you have to do is you just right click on your my computer and go to properties, go to system settings, environment variables, go to name. The variable name should be Java_home. Okay, Java_home, And what is the variable value? The variable value is whatever the JDK path you have, the JDK path you have to use. Okay, just cancel it. Okay, just copy this. Nif Java underscore home. See, it should be underscore. You should not use bin. Okay, till here, till JDK. I'm using JDK 1.8 now. Okay. Fine. Yes, we're done with this. Now just start your server. Just double click on it. So it gives you the information over here. Okay, let me increase the font size. Okay. Actually there is one more server which is started. That's the reason it got off. Okay. Let me start it again. Okay, to know that, let's go to services. Okay, fine. Let me just check out this. Okay, there is already one server which is running with this thing. So what I'll do is I'll change the port number first. I'm just troubleshooting this. 8080 8011. Oh, let me go ahead and say 8017. Okay, replace all. Fine. Let me save this. Okay, let me start the server again. We'll see what it says. Okay, it is doing the same thing. That means one more server is already started here. Let me check that. Because I have already one more server in this, so that's the reason, I guess. Let me check this. Okay. So let's shut down this. Okay, it got shut down now. Let me open this. Let me try this. Yeah, now you can see here the server has been started. Okay, with the port number, that port number is already used by someone, I mean some service. So let me change that port number. To change the port number, just go to configuration folder, go to server.xml, and so what we have given in the previous case, I guess it is 8017. Okay, now I'll say 8017, replace it with 8010. Okay, anything is fine. Okay, let me save this. Okay, let me run this server again. I'm sorry, I've started the server which is in this backup folder, so I should not start this. Actually, we have done the changes to the different one. So this one, the folder we have extracted just before. Okay. First, let me shut down all the servers. So should be very careful with the server, because if not, it plays with us. Okay, fine. I have started this one, no problem, anything is fine now. Okay, you can see the server says that it has started in 2521 milliseconds with a port number called 8089. So this is your service port number. Fine. Okay, this is how you have to start the server. The next thing is, in this folder, a folder you'll have called as web apps folder. In this folder you have to put your application. That means deploying your application. You're copying your application in web apps folder is called as deployment of your application. Okay, So I've already deployed some applications like applic, user navigation, some kind of applications have already deployed in this. That's the reason it's showing here. You can see there's just showing some application like applic, yes, user navigation. Okay, fine. Now if you develop any application, you have to put it in web apps folder. And next important thing is these servlets will have a jar file. That means whatever the packages we have, those packages will be available in a jar file. So that jar file is nothing but servlet-api.jar. So this is a jar file, servlet-api. So this jar file we have to use if at all we are compiling our Java classes. That means you have to set class path. Or else what you can do is simply what you can do is you can use IDE and you can just build the set path. Sorry, you can set the build path to this servlet-api. That's it. Just like your OJDBC 14.jar. Okay, fine. Okay, now let us develop the application. So if you want to develop an application, you should follow a structure. So why we have to follow the structure? The importance of following structure is if you develop this application with a structure, which is a universal structure, then you can run your application in any server. That means your application becomes server independent. If you follow the structure, if you don't follow the structure, it becomes server dependent. That means if you run your application on Tomcat server, it runs only on Tomcat server. It doesn't run, it never runs on the other servers like application server or some other web servers. Okay, so what is the structure here? Very simple. You'll have a root directory. In the root, here directory means a folder. You'll have a root folder. In the root folder, you'll have one more folder called as webinf folder, web information folder. In this folder, you'll have classes folder, and you'll have a file called web.xml. Pretty simple. You'll have a file called web.xml. Okay. Okay. Now web.xml is very important in order to provide URL to the user. So if you want to access Facebook, you'll have an URL, right? That means http://www.facebook.com. So that is called as URL. So that URL you are providing using web.xml. Okay, fine. So how do we create all these things? So let us go with an application now. Okay, I'll create the root directory here. Let me call this as first app. So I'll create a folder called webinf. In this folder, classes folder. Then one more thing we have to create, that means web.xml. So let me save this with web.xml. Save as .xml. That's it. Okay. Now in the classes folder, we'll be writing our servlet classes. Okay, let me write the first servlet class. So I'll be writing this class by implementing servlet interface. Okay. So what I'm going to do is pretty simple. I'll import the package. Now I'll take a class. The class should be public. I'll tell you why. Should implement servlet interface. So it contains a method, actually it contains 5 methods. I'm writing those 5 methods here. If you implement any interface, in that case you have to provide implementation for all the methods, right? That is the rule of interfaces. So don't worry about the servlet config. It takes a parameter for servlet config, IO exception and servlet exception, I guess. To know this, pretty simple, what you can do is just go to command prompt you can set the class path. That means I'm trying to see the profile of a class, profile of an interface. So just go to your lib folder, servlet -api. Just copy this. So after this, just right click here, paste. Okay. Now what I'm gonna do is I'll say java p javax dot servlet interface. Now we have 5 methods. Init method which throws one exception called as servlet exception. So I'll just take the syntax of it. I'm just providing the implementation. So I don't write anything. I'll just write a print statement. I'll say system dot out dot init method called. Okay. Next, I have one more method called as service method, which takes 2 parameters. One is servlet request and servlet response. As RS. It throws 2 exceptions. One is IO exception, the other one is servlet exception. So I'm writing a simple statement here. I'll say service method called. Okay. Next we have one more method, destroy method. It doesn't throw any exception. I'll just say system dot out dot println. I'll say destroy method called. Okay. Next we have 2 more methods, public. Don't worry about these 2 methods now, as of now, because you won't understand the importance of these 2 methods now. So because these 2 methods are 2 different concepts. So it is expecting an object. I am returning null. I don't want to return any object now, so I'll return null. Next I have one more method called as get servlet info, which expects a string. These 2 methods will not be called. You have to call them. These 2 methods are not lifecycle methods, so your server will not call them. So I'll return nothing here. Okay. Now you're done with your class, right? So let me compile this. So how do you compile this? Just copy your path where actually you are in, cd, paste here, java c first servlet.java. If everything is fine, okay, we got some errors here. Public string get servlet info, illegal start of the expression. Okay, and one more important thing is we don't write main method. Remember this thing. We don't write main method. Okay, I forgot to give the close brace here. So we have 2 more errors, that is system n 2 times here. Okay, we have one more error. Okay, it is unable to find IO exception. IO exception is a class from java.io package. So let me import it. Import java.io.style. So let me compile it again. Now you can see it got compiled. You should not say java space first servlet, because we are not developing console application. We don't have main method. Okay, we are not developing console application. For only console applications, we'll be writing main method. Remember this. Okay. So now this is your resource. Now how do you make available this resource? You'll make this resource available to the user by providing an URL. So how do you provide the URL? So you'll provide the URL in a deployment descriptor. It is called as deployment descriptor, known as web.xml. So using this web.xml, you'll provide that information. So how do you provide? It's a tag based language. So which application you're developing? Web application. So we'll have web app tag as the root tag. Then what you have written in that? Servlet. You'll have servlet tag. For every opening tag, you'll have a closing tag. Okay. Next, you'll have, now what you have written in that? A servlet class. Yes or no? See, in the application you have written a servlet class. What is that class name? First servlet. Okay. Now how do you provide the URL pattern? So you have to provide a URL, right, to your application. So whenever the user gives the URL, this servlet class has to be called, it has to be executed, and what are the methods present in it, those methods should be called. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is, I'll use a tag called servlet mapping. So for every opening tag, you'll have a closing tag. Using servlet mapping, what I'm gonna do is, I'll give URL pattern. URL pattern. So every URL pattern will start with slash here. So I'm giving it as test. So test is my URL pattern. If the user gives /test, application /test, in that case, this particular thing has to be executed, right? How do you provide the link between this and this? So we provide the link between these two by giving a class name, a servlet name to this class. So I'll say servlet name what I'm going to say here is, I'll say F. You can give any name for that servlet name, okay? So with the help of this, I'll call that first servlet. So I'll just paste the thing here. Is this clear? So whenever the user gives test, it checks for servlet name with F. Do we have any servlet with name F? Yes. Then it will call this servlet class and it will call the init method, service method based on the request. Now you have to check whether this is correct or not. To do so, you weave this in browser. If it gives like this, that means it is correct. Okay. So finally we are done with the application. So now we have to run this. Okay. So I've placed help here. I'll forward this to you. No problem. Okay. Now the server is already started, right? So what I'll do is I'll just copy my app and I have to paste it in my server, right? So where is my server? It is in backup folder. So here it is not there. This is not our server which we are, yeah, this is the server. So go to web apps folder, paste your application. First I have pasted it. Okay, you can just check the server here. It says deploying web application directly first. That means your application has been deployed into the server. Now you can access it. Okay, how do we access it? So there's some problem with my Google Chrome browser. Okay, using a browser you have to access it. There is a problem with my browser, so let me check whether it is fixed or not. I don't know, everything happens to my laptop itself, the audio part and everything. Okay, so HTTP localhost. Now where is your, how to access this? So all the web applications will be accessed using HTTP. Okay, HTTP. Where is your server? It is in the same system, so I'll call it as localhost. Okay, now what is the port number? 8089. You can see here, this is the port number 8089. Slash, what is your project name? It is first app. Slash, what is your the URL pattern? It is test. Okay, that's it. This is the request. Okay, you got nothing yet because we didn't print anything. We didn't print anything on the browser, but you have printed something on console, right? See, system.out.println refers to console. So let's go to the console. You can see it says init method called, service method called. That means for the first request, what is called? Init method called, then service method is called. So this is the first request, right? Next we will give next request, second request. So I've given second request. Which method called service method. Third request, fourth request, fifth request. So I'm giving a number of consecutive requests here. You can see for every time service method is called. That means init method will be called only once. Okay. And what about the destroy method? So if you undeploy your application, undeploying means just what you can do is you can just remove that application. So here is my application, just delete it. I haven't deployed it, not any cost. It has, yes, you can see destroy method called. Okay, so if you remove your, if you make your server, I mean if you make your application unavailable, in that case it calls destroy method. Okay, this is how we have to develop an application. Is this clear? So you practice this, and what I've done is, for your convenience, I have recorded this video. Yes, that's the reason I have recorded this, because every time I may not be available. So I've recorded this, so I'll forward you this file also. Okay, I'll try to do it now itself. So if it is going on now, that is fine. If not, I'll forward you later. But I'll forward for sure. Okay, along with the software, it's fine. Okay, the next application we'll see tomorrow. You try to go through this. Okay. Okay, very good. Fine. See you tomorrow then. Yeah. Bye now.